Hello, world history students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have some notes here for Chapter 12, Section 1, a little bit of Chapter 13, Section 2, and Chapter 17, Section 1. You're going to need your packet for the Middle East, and as we go along, make sure you're filling in the blanks where it's needed. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Byzantine Empire here to start with, and some major transitions that were happening. And in the year 1453, a group of people known as the Ottoman Turks attacked and conquered the great city of Constantinople. Not that Constantinople had been without the threat of invasion over the years, but in 1453, this was a kind of a holy war site. The church that you see kind of pictured down here at the bottom of the slide, sometimes known as the Hagia Sophia or Hagia Sophia, was one of the world's largest churches at this period of time, and it had fallen into the hands of the Greek Orthodox at one point in time, and then into the hands of the Catholics, and then back into the hands of the Orthodox, and kind of going back and forth. But in 1453, when the Ottomans came in, the church fell into the hands of the Muslims, and after a few days of pillaging and such, the Muslims turned this into a great mosque. So, along with this victory, the city of Constantinople got a name change to Istanbul, and I think at one point in time it had been named some different things, Constantinople probably being the most famous because of the ties to the Roman Empire, but Byzantium at some point in time. But today, the city is still known as Istanbul. And the Hagia Sophia is, at one point in time became a mosque. Today, it is a museum. And it's kind of under the threat of falling in on itself because of some years of possibly neglect. So nevertheless, this is a site here that's been highly contested. Kind of moving into Chapter 13, Section 2, also talking a little bit about Muslim invaders. In the year 711, a Muslim army crossed the Strait of Gibraltar. And if you take a look down here on the map, this little area between what would be the Iberian Peninsula, that would include Spain and Portugal today, and northern Africa, primarily what would be part of present-day Morocco. This little bit of water here is known as the Strait of Gibraltar. And it's at this point where the Muslims cross into Europe. Okay, they would go into what is now present-day Spain and rule the Iberian Peninsula for roughly 700 years. A few years down the road, in the year 732, the Muslims crossed the Pyrenees Mountains, which kind of formed the border between Spain and France. And at that point in time, they met up with a man named Charles Martel, who you see pictured down below. And they met at a battle called Tours, which is probably one of the more pivotal battles in world history. If you want to talk about what could have been, the mark of a different world that we would live in, it's this battle. So there's a lot of weight of the world kind of riding on this. But the Muslims and primarily the Christians under Martel, they go head to head. And at this battle, Charles Martel is able to stop the spread of Islam into Europe. Between 800 and 900 small Muslim raiding parties would attack southern France, kind of in this vicinity, including Italy as well and the city of Rome, and destroying one of the first buildings that would be known as St. Peter's Basilica. This basilica would be rebuilt, and probably the most famous being the rebuilding that happened around the time of the 10th century. All right, moving into Chapter 17, Section 1, speaking of the Ottoman and the Safavid empires. Number one here, the Ottoman military had two advantages. They had elite soldiers who were loyal to their sultan and superior weapons. These weapons certainly were state-of-the-art for the time when we talk about swords and such. The location of Anatolia, which is this peninsula right here, or what would be today known as present-day Turkey, was special in its strategic intersection of Asia and Europe when we talk about the different continents. And so being able to hold this territory, again, might provide an opportunity to spread Islam into what would be parts of Europe. And that did happen. This peninsula right here is known as the Balkan Peninsula. Greece is located in this vicinity, but the Ottomans did occupy this area, spreading some of its faith as well. Not to say that there weren't people who were still Orthodox Christians, but there was far more pressure for conversion here. So the Ottomans did show some cultural and religious tolerance. They believed that they would face less opposition from the conquered people, and they could also benefit from some of their knowledge. Okay, that sounds great on paper, but there were some things that happened that, for the most part, would challenge that kind of liberal feeling, and that is the Janissaries. They were created in the Balkans, in that Balkan Peninsula, and when Christian boys were taken from their families, they were forced to convert to Islam and to be trained as soldiers. Mehmed II's conquest of Constantinople, and if you remember just a few moments ago, we talked about the year 1453 when the Ottoman invaders came in and were able to conquer the city of Constantinople and to capture the Hagia Sophia and to make that into a mosque. Mehmed II, this is the man who was able to do this, and he was considered to be cruel because many people were killed and many saw the destruction of the great city as being really unnecessary. The Safavids, they were founded through different conquests. They blended cultural elements of the Shia Muslim faith and the Persian Empire. They built magnificent cities, palaces, and mosques, producing a golden age. And their founder was a young boy at the age of 14 known as Ishmael, you see pictured below. Over the years, religion brought the Safavid Empire into conflict with the Ottoman, and they became kind of rivals. The Safavids were Shia Muslims, while other Muslims, including our Ottoman, were Sunnis. And this division between Shia or Shiites and Sunnis, even to this day, is a source of bitter conflict within the Middle East. Some of the achievements of Abbas, who was a Safavid, were that he reformed the government, he strengthened the military, and he acquired gunpowder weapons, which certainly made them a force to be reckoned with. The Ottomans defeated the Safavids in the year 1514 using superior gunpowder weapons. So in a sense, we had an arms race happening in this part of the world. All right, thank you very much.